So Ryan, thanks for coming on to talk to us.
No.
Could you tell us a bit about yourself and your work and what you do?
Right. I was a teacher actually for 18 years in St Columns. I started writing novels about 10, 11 years ago maybe. So I've had 7 out so far, which I've done okay. One of them's been a New York Times bestseller, which is very nice. And so I've taken a break from teaching for a while, and I'm kind of writing full time now. So I write crime novels, and I've started doing screen writing this year as well. So,
would you ever go back to teaching?
I don't know. I'm enjoying. I kind of am enjoying the change in career. Yeah. I think kind of 18 years is a long time to be doing one thing, and I think for my benefit and for the benefit of people I was teaching, I think you need to take a break. You need to do something different, and kind of exercise a different set of intellectual muscles, I suppose. So I'm enjoying writing at the minute, and writing full time, and I suppose it's a privilege because most writers have 2 jobs, and writing tends to be the second. So it's really nice to have writing as a kind of primary career for a while. So we'll see how it goes.
What made you want to take part in on Home Grounds Festival?
Well, kind of strangely enough, this time last year, I had invited, because when I was still in St Columns, I had invited Seamus to do an event in the school, and he had agreed. Now, I don't even know if it was ever quite announced. He was meant to be doing an event last September 19th with Snow Patrol in St Columns Hall, and a guy called Jared McChrystal, who's a saxophonist. He's a past pupil of St Columns. The idea was that it would be past pupils of the school. Yeah. And Seamus had agreed to do an event with him, and the final act was going to be Snow Patrol and Jared and Seamus all kind of performing a piece together. So it was a complete shock. I mean, he had emailed me about 2 days before he died just to confirm events. So it was a massive shock to discover that he had died. And so it kind of seems kind of strangely appropriate in a way to honour that, to be involved in the project this year that Snow Patrol are involved in. So I suppose there's a kind of a strange symmetry to it. I think kind of from a bigger remove though, to be a writer from here, you are going to be influenced by Heaney, you're going to be influenced by his writing, and particularly by that kind of sense of landscape. Because I suppose like Frost, it was almost impossible for him not to write about the landscape because it's so significant and so beautiful and so striking, and so kind of heavy in symbolism and heavy in mythology. And having been a past pupil at St Columns, as you may well know, you kind of get Seamus Heaney poems from day one. And so I suppose kind of part of the process of developing as a writer for me was looking beyond the midterm breaks and the diggings and the followers that are taught year after year after year, and discovering all the other fantastic work that he had done that maybe isn't taught, but that is probably much more meaningful and much more significant when you discover it by yourself.
For you yourself, what did Seamus Heaney mean to you?
I had a strange kind of thing, because I went to St Columns. I think whenever you're a college pupil, Heaney becomes almost this kind of a figure. It becomes almost unreal, or perhaps you become kind of so familiar with his body of work that you don't really understand its significance. And maybe there is a degree of familiarity breeding not contempt, but kind of acceptance. And what happened for me was, when I was at university, there was a friend of mine from Galway, and we were chatting one night over Coke and crisps, as you do at university. And she was, we were talking about schools and about kind of where we'd grown up, and I mentioned that I come from St Columns. She said, "Oh, Seamus Heaney went there," and I said, "Yeah, that's right, yeah, he did." And she said, "I love his poetry," and I said, "Yeah, midterm break." She said, no, there was one, and she told me a story, and her mother had died about 6 months previous, and she said she fell apart. She couldn't deal with it. She was really struggling to understand, to kind of get a kind of an angle on it. And she read a Heaney poem from Clearances, the one when all the others were away at Mass. And she said nobody talking to her could help her to understand what had happened until she discovered that poem. And she said when she read that poem, it just changed everything. And she understood that other people had felt what she had felt and had had experiences that she had had. and it was almost like looking at somebody's work through a completely fresh pair of eyes. I mean, it was that kind of sense of having been so familiar with it for so long, you kind of suddenly realise that's really what literature is. Literature is an attempt to make a connection. It's an attempt to show people, to show everyone that we're all the same and that we all share concerns and we all share experiences and we all share feelings. And that poem made all the difference to her. It changed the way in which she was able to accept with probably the biggest trauma in her life. And that is an immensely powerful thing to be able to do. I mean, no other person was able to do that for her. Nobody else was able to break through but that poem. And I think whenever I heard that, it forced me to go back then and look at the work again from a kind of a fresh perspective and to really understand the power of it. And I think it is almost appropriate then that the final collection was Human Chain. And it's one of my favourite poems, actually, the title poem from that collection, because Heaney really got that. He really got that kind of sense of us all being connected. And right down even the kind of drama work with Cura Troy and the Burial Thieves, that kind of sense that what happened 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago still resonates now. Those kind of themes and ideas and concerns are still significant to us today. And that's a remarkable achievement for a writer. I think we underestimate sometimes just how remarkable an achievement that is.
Do you remember your first time coming into contact with any work? Was it at St. Columns? Or?
I think it probably would have been at St. Columns, and I think it was midterm break. Yeah. And again, possibly because whenever I was a student at St. Columns, the junior school was still in Bishop Street, which is where Heaney had actually, which was the building that Heaney had attended. And so it was very easy to understand it because all the places were still there. The sick bay was still there, and you understood the bell and the ringing of the bell and the significance of that. So I think that was probably the first kind of understanding of it. And then he came into the school a couple of times, so we're kind of lucky enough to hear him reading a few times in the school because he kind of maintained that connection. And I think possibly the first then after I had left, whenever I had left the school and left university, at the clearances collection, kind of on the foot of what I've just said about my friend, and then the Spirit Level, whenever I come out the Spirit Level, it's just a stunning collection. And I remember there was one of the poems in that, A Call, about his father, which is almost the kind of the antithesis, I was going to say, of follower, and digging, in that those poems are about how kind of strong his father is and how much he looks up to him. And then in this poem, A Call, you just get a sense of time having passed. And it's this kind of beautiful poem about him phoning and imagining his father out working in the garden, except this time now his father's frail and the most that he can manage to do is pull a weed out of the flower bed. And I wrote that poem, kind of stuck in my head and made me then want to revisit his work even more.
Well, thanks very much for talking to me.
Oh, well, thank you.